Dan Walken, USA Today. Hey, Chris, how did you decide to take Matt Stainbrook from Western Michigan? And I saw his pictures of him when he was there. His body looks different than it does now. What did you see in him, and did you imagine him becoming the player that he is right now?
Well, Matt's first college game for Western Michigan was against Xavier in the Cintas Center. That was his first game, and we had a center named Kenny Freeze, who's a really good player, an all-conference type player. And, I think Matt, on his first game of his career, if he didn't get a double-double, was right there, 9 points, 8 rebounds, and really played Kenny toe-to-toe and held his ground. And so it just made a note of that, like, wow, how did we not recruit a guy from, Lakewood St. Ed's, a storied program, a guy that certainly looks like a player to me, a little out of shape. And then a couple years later, he ends up transferring. And, we just asked a couple of our colleagues that played against him, that coached against him, their thoughts. And, Rob Senderhoff of Kent State just said, man, I love big guys, and he has a good touch, and you look at Matt's statistics as a sophomore. I mean, he's pulling double-doubles against Duke, Colorado, Temple. It seemed like the bigger the competition, the better he played. So we brought Matt down on a visit, and he was interested. And I just had a very open and honest conversation with Matt. Told him that we weren't going to take him unless he was serious about basketball. He couldn't show that he was serious and still weigh 320 pounds. Said, we're going to try to get you down to 260 pounds. I told him, you're going to take off, your funky elbow pads and your knee braces and, your wild hair you're going to cut. And he was like, Coach, that's no problem. I'll do that. I'll do anything you ask. And we had heard a lot of people say he'll do anything that you ask him to do. And I told him, well, he's going to take off those hideous-looking goggles. And he said, Coach, I sort of have a lazy eye, and they're prescription. I said, all right, buddy, you can keep the goggles. And that's sort of how we went about it. And then we were also able to give Matt a workout. And we did a post drill that we do every day in the off season or in the preseason workouts. And Matt was the best guy of our post guys. He knew how to seal. He knew how to use his body. And that just right there said, if he can do that in 320 pounds, imagine what he can do at 270 pounds. And from that day forward, I just kept texting with Matt, okay, this is when he was still at Western, and then when he was back in Cleveland before he came down in the summer, this is what you're going to run today. I want to know your time on the track. You're going to do 2.5 miles today. Tell me your time. Every day, he would text me back, Coach, this is what I got. And he showed up on his unofficial visit at 320 pounds, and in about a month span before we got him, he showed back up at Xavier to start summer classes, down 17 pounds, so I knew that he was serious at that point.
Yeah, go for it, yeah, absolutely.
So yesterday, he's obviously playing extremely well. He gets that big basket and the technical foul. Is that him, that sort of fiery, right on the edge player? And how much did you, how unhappy were you with that moment, given everything?
Well, you never want your players to get technicals. Matt can get chippy, and oftentimes it can be with the wrong people. It can be with the referees. He generally doesn't say squat to his opponents. I really don't know what happened. I don't know if they were exchanging barbs, with the dunk at the other end, and Matt, this was sort of his way of getting back. All that stuff is really meaningless, and you got to be above that. And Matt, as a fifth-year senior, for the most part in his career, has always been above that. But, you do want your seniors to play with some urgency, with some fire. And I think, Matt is certainly playing like that here down the stretch.
On the left, and we'll get to you next.
Shannon Russell, Cincinnati Enquirer. With such a short turnaround, your team, their team, plays what you are, who you are, as you are. And Coach Hunter said that what they like to do is confuse opponents on defense, try a lot of different looks within one possession. Have you seen that before in other opponents this year, and what do they do to really kind of disrupt teams on offense?
Well, they reach constantly. They employ a matchup zone. We have to do a great job of being ball strong. When you drive around your man, most teams try to get back into play. Georgia State's content to let you go around them and then reach from behind. And that's why they're fourth in the country in turning people over. And our guys have to be cognizant of that. If we can take really good care of the ball, get good shots, and be good on the glass, then I think our offense will be fine. But easier said than done. Georgia State's in this game for a reason. And we just have to take really, really good care of the ball.
Second row on the aisle.
Gary Smith's Florida Times Union. Coach, of all the crazy things that went on yesterday in the first day of the tournament, Georgia State seems to be the best nationwide story. They're inspiring a lot of attention. And what are you going to do with your kids to keep them concentrating on a task at hand and not get caught up and we're going against what essentially has become America's team?
I mean, our guys don't read USA Today. I mean, I don't know how to answer that question. I mean, like, I think the fan bases in general get caught up in that. Players don't. I'm more worried about players understanding zipper flare, understanding, when they run a stagger ball screen, they'll either stagger away for Hunter or they'll pop the four-man. That's the only thing that we concern ourselves with. We don't worry about, the nation's feel-good story. They can find another story after Saturday if we do our job.
Here on the left.
Miles struggled from three-point range in the Big East tournament and for the first part of yesterday's game. How much does that impact you guys to have him maybe making some shots and be able to have that confidence?
Well, he's one of the best shooters on our team. And, Matt, not only Matt, but certainly out of the post, Matt, finds our guys on the perimeter when they choose to double. I think we've been a really good passing team all year. And if you've got guys like D and Miles and Trayvon and JP hitting shots, it makes us that much harder to guard. And it was really good to see Miles knock in a couple. He's worked at it. He's got to understand last year was last year. This year's a new year. He's had a phenomenal year. He could have easily been named the most improved player in the Big East based on what he did as a freshman versus his sophomore numbers. And he's got to play like that. And I thought when D went out with foul trouble, Miles assumed a point and did a great job. And it's good to see those 2 threes go in for him.
Go for it.
What does Jalen need to do to play more like Jalen in tomorrow's game as compared to the last game?
He needs to focus on the next play. Jalen sometimes plays as if he's that character on Charlie Brown that has the rain cloud above his head all the time. And so if something goes poorly for Jalen, he slumps his shoulders and drops his head. And what he doesn't understand is that affects the next play. You've got to have a short-term memory. And it's part of the reason that makes Jalen such a great player is he cares so much, and he's bothered when he doesn't play well. But the really good ones I've been around, they have a next play mentality. What can I do to help my team on the very next play, whether it's defensively, offensively? And he and I talked about that, and I'm confident he'll be a better player tomorrow. He usually shines when we need him most.
What about D? Has he shined not necessarily on the court, but maybe in the locker room or talking to guys? Because he's had this experience. He's been here before, and a lot of the freshmen obviously haven't.
Well, I'm incredibly proud of D. I think he's been maligned throughout his career as just an average point guard. And the fact is he's one of the top 15 assist men in the entire country. He does a great job of running our show, of running our team. Doesn't matter if you throw out a zone, a press, man-to-man. He runs our stuff and gets guys in the right spots, and there's a comfort zone when D's on the floor. When he's hitting shots and people don't respect his ability to shoot the three, he's had some really big games in his career, none bigger than yesterday. And I'd like to think that his experience as a freshman in the NCAA tournament, being part of a Sweet 16 team, has really fueled his desire to be even more so of a leader here as of late, to get that feeling back and to get back to the stage that he was on as a freshman in a bigger role. I'm really proud of D.
Any other questions? Yeah, I've had it.
How much is RJ a key to his team? I mean, he didn't score much in the first half of the last game, but obviously made the winning shot and came up strong.
They wouldn't be here without him. The truly great players can shake off a bad game personally and make plays like he did, whether it's on the defensive end or the big three that you mentioned. He's, as I said yesterday, an NBA caliber prospect. And our players understand that. We've got guys that are from Indianapolis. You know, Trayvon Blewett knows R.J. Hunter extremely well and his family. Those Indianapolis kids know one another. So there's going to be no, wow, I didn't know he'd shoot that shot, or I didn't know he had that in his arsenal. We understand that R.J. Hunter's completely capable of going off for 40 at any single moment in time. And we have to do our best to chase him off screens, make life difficult for him. And at the same time, they've got other very, very good players, talented players, and they're really led by their perimeter players, and it's a different style than we've seen.
I know you know Coach Hunter just from the recruiting trail, but did you remember watching him when he played at Miami, when they played Xavier, when Byron was a freshman?
I don't think they had televisions back then. I listened to him on the radio a little bit, he and Byron. No, the Miami teams back then were really, really good. Ron Harper, Coach Hunter, Little Newsome. I mean, those guys were really, really special. And I remember all those wars, growing up and just falling in love with basketball, whether it was, just going to games, listening to them on the radio, following them when they had, when your paper was 15 pages long and was full size and not, 4 inches by 4 inches and a lot of car ads. Yeah, I remember those days. Sorry, Shannon.
Any other final questions? Everybody good? Coach, thank you.
Thank you.